decided to make my career a keeping up with Kardashians do. But before I continue, as the prime minister and side of government, I'll be doing a few simple things today. First, I'll be giving you the definition of the motion and what the gist of this debate should actually be about. I'll be giving you a case setup on our side, and I'll be proving to you two things. Firstly, why exactly as an F1 driver we regret this the Drive to Survive documentary series, and secondly, what is the better option that we could go for. Now, before that, okay, definitions of the motion, right? Okay, so generally, right, for these, as we've known from the info slide just now, this Drive to Survive television documentary series is something that was created on Netflix, and it is something supposedly, right, documentaries are supposedly for something to be the end goal is to educate and share with people what they want to share about. The main goal is to educate people, but at the same time, this Drive to Survive documentary series, it kind of manipulates it gives a behind behind the scenes look at the drivers and the races of this world championship. But at the same time, it manipulates the kind of stories, manipulates what happens, and dramatizes everything, and for it to gain more views technically. Now, we say that so we say that this Drive to Survive documentary series, in the end, it doesn't actually achieve an end goal of educating and share and being able to share what they are what Formula One is all about. Because, like I said before, it's going to be this Drive to Survive series is a copy and paste of basically keeping up with the Kardashians, but instead of the Kardashians, you replace it with F1 drivers. This becomes a problem because of 3 reasons. Why exactly is this Drive to Survive series bad? Firstly, we say that this is an invasion of privacy. Like I told you before, this, even though it's categorized as a documentary, we see that the Drive to Survive series isn't actually documenting. Instead, it is a reality TV show. This is true because documentaries are supposed to educate people. For example, what a documentary about Formula One World Championships should look like is the kind of trainings that these people go through. How maybe them talking about how they are able to drive these cars, how their life experiences and such. But we can see that this isn't how this Drive to Survive series actually functions. They show kind of like a behind the scenes look where they show portrayals of wrongful portrayals such as false rivalries between teammates and such. This happens because these Drive to Survive is basically made by Netflix. So therefore, its main goal of Drive to Survive is for it to basically gain views and for it to be entertainment for other people. For it to be entertainment, it has to be obviously entertaining. And when it's entertaining, secondly, this will cause more false info, because for it to be entertaining, they're going to be they will have to manipulate or change what the manipulate or dramatize what is happening and going through what it actually is going through. Now, there are 2 ways this kind of false information could go through. Firstly, it could try to portray the truth, but at the same time, while it is somewhat portraying the truth of what happens, it is also manipulating it is somewhat manipulating some part of the story to make more people click and watch that documentary TV show. And then another way this could go through is they could also just straight up create another totally new life. Now, my third argument is on how that this Drive to Survive series is bad because it causes people to lose. It causes these F1 drivers to lose fans or people to lose interest. Now, 2 ways. Firstly, even if they gain fans, right? Even if they gain fans from this Drive to Survive series because it makes it so entertaining and everyone wants to watch it, even if people come and click and try and it gains fans, but those are the kinds of fans that are not they aren't the true committed fans. These are the fans that come to these races to see just because they saw that TV show, the Drive to Survive TV show, and they have this kind of expectation where they believe that however the F1 driver was portrayed in the documentary series is how they're going to be like in real life. But But then when they come to the races and they actually see that these Drive to Survive races are not even how they are in real in that in the TV series, they're going to get disappointed and totally drop the whole thing. And secondly, this is also fruitcake. Continue. Yes.
You say that at the end of the day, like, okay, at least when we have this TV show, right, people are actually coming and coming to watch. But how are you on your side going to give publicity to these F1 drivers?
Okay, I was just getting into that. Okay. Like I said, when this drive to survive exists, it further causes to for you to drive away the most truest and committed fans. This is because when there's really committed fans who actually are interested in that racer or in Formula One driving, right? They it will further drive away because of it could go two ways. Firstly, they actually believe whatever is being portrayed on the Drive to Survive television, which causes a bad image for the drivers. Or secondly, even if they don't believe whatever that is being portrayed, there will be an image of that racer where they believe that, oh, my racer isn't committed to the sport in itself. My racer is not committed to the world championship. He's busy going on television. He's busy trying to gain people and trying to be a copy paste celebrity of everyone else. Now I've proven to you more further why this would cause people to drive. It will cause people their truest committed fans to be driven away. Now, fourthly, we say that this causes a disappreciation on one the F1 driver and secondly of the sports in itself. Because now the F1, okay, for example, for the Formula One driver, the Formula One driver is going to be only known for the TV series that person is in, and therefore he won't be actually appreciated for all the efforts and works that he has gone through, for all the years that he has sacrificed for his career, and secondly, how it would disappreciate the entire sport as a whole. People come to this sports. I mean, the uh, 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 to watch the Formula One races just because they want to see how that reality TV show is in the end. We say that this is not we say that it's terrible and this will cause a lot of harm, and this will be explained further in my deputy prime minister speech. Now, throughout my speech, I've been telling to you why this Drive to Survive TV series is bad, how exactly it can be invasive to the drivers, how exactly it can create false information towards people, and how exactly it could drive away even the most committed fans. And with that, I've never been prouder to propose.
All right, thank you for the Prime Minister for that very fine speech. To continue and or rather to start the opposition case, leader of opposition, here.
Okay, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. So a very good day to the panel and all my fellow debaters. So the motion today is this House as an F1 driver regrets Drive to Survive, the Netflix series. And I, as the leader of opposition, strongly oppose this motion as we find that we do not regret the Netflix series that has been made, Drive to Survive. Well, let's take a look. What is Formula One before that itself? Formula One is a race car sports event which is held internationally at a very high level, and it has such a high prestige among its fans and even people who do not watch it. So, as for what said by the Prime Minister, I have a few rebuttals to make. The Prime Minister was continuously saying that this is a copy paste of the other Netflix series, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Well, I believe that comparing Drive to Survive with Keeping Up with Kardashians, or even just putting them together, is a disgrace, and that is the real disappreciation to the F1 drivers, because Drive to Survive doesn't cover just some rich lifestyle luxury drama that's happening in their house. It covers about real life F1 drivers who put their health, who put themselves to the risk for their profession, for their job, and most importantly for their fans. So next thing was that they constantly mentioned about how there are like portrayals, fake portrayals, or things that have been edited to make it seem different. Well, let me say, yes, I agree with that. But then not everything is completely fake. There are some things that are given at face value. It is given just the direct truth so that the viewers can actually see what's going on. So now coming into my arguments and why we do not regret Drive to Survive and actually believe that Drive to Survive is a good initiative is because first, viewers get a better perspective of this F1 experience. Well, as far as of now, all we see as F1 fans and as F1 audience, all we see is just before the race about 30 minutes of speeches by the professionals. They have a small podcast, and then we see the race happening in action so fast, so amazingly. And then after that, it's the short interview with the media, and then it's over. That's what we see. But we don't really see what's happening in the inside. So when having such a show, the viewers actually get the full picture and understand what the drivers are going through at the current moment and what is it actually to be in the driver's shoes, which is an exhilarating experience for the viewers. Next, as mentioned by the PY, the drive. No, thank you. The drivers get more promotion and a little more fame to their name. Well, this is very important, as if the drivers get more promotion onto their name through these kind of documentaries and these kind of coverings, this will enhance or actually improve their chances of getting more sponsorships or any dealings with big and large companies, which will one give them a better career and also help them financially. Third is sponsorships and companies get insight of what this F1 really looks like. So when sponsorships and companies want to sponsor specific drivers or specific people in the F1, they want to make the right decision. They want to make sure that they are getting the right people to be the face of their brand. I'll get back to you later. Want to be the face of their brand. So in that way, these kind of real life documentaries can actually really help with the sponsors and companies being able to make some decisions when when choosing when or who to sponsor and give dealerships to. Next, lastly, it increases the promotion of not only the drivers, but F1 as a total. Let's take an example. F1 is also here in Malaysia. We do have the Sepang F1 circuit. But recently, in the past 10 years or plus, this circuit has been slowly dying and the popularity of F1 is slowly reducing. Like it has been so long since Sepang F1 circuit had a race held there. So this shows that people are losing interest in it. Well, there have been other initiatives such as F1 in schools, which is an educational initiative of creating F1 cars and racing them on straight tracks, which is a great initiative to increase its popularity. And so Drive to Survive will also increase the popularity and also give a lot more of just news to the people. Maybe some people might not even know F1 exists, but then one day they just go to Netflix and they're scrolling and then they see, wow, Drive to Survive. And then they start watching it and hence they get hooked up into F1. So these are reasons why why the opposition thinks that we do not regret the initiative of Drive to Survive. It is a great series. Yes, it does affect when it is done. It does affect the privacy of the drivers. Yes, there may be some false information, but if we take it into consideration, maybe 30 to 40%, maybe just almost about 30 to 20% is where we get some kind of changes and everything. But other than that, the face value, the entirety is always covered in its truth so that the viewers get the best experience. Yes, you may ask your PY now.
Yeah, so while we both agree that the show kind of misrepresented us, why would we trade our dignity for money?
Okay, well, if you look for it, you are not exactly, yes, I agree with your point. Yes, maybe your privacy and maybe some things about yourself are being shown, and that may affect your dignity or public image. But if you look at the bright side, it actually gives a way better this one in a long-term value. Example, let's take driver X for an example in the F1, and they are portrayed to like have a lot of beef with other drivers. Well, this may cause a lot of issues for him. He may receive backlash from the viewers. But if you look at the bigger picture, this driver will get a popularity. Yes, money is one of them. One more thing is that there might be fans of his who would actually be more supportive of him and would actually love to be more, would like to see him grow more and would like to see him become a better person. There is always a long run in the picture. Yes, your dignity issue is a very short-term picture if you really look at the face value. If you look at the long term, this can actually enhance the entire prospect of career for the F1 drivers. And in that fact, I think it would be really great, especially for new drivers or
Recording
newcomers
stopped.
into the F1. They would have an amazing boost in career prospect if through documentary series like this. So thank you very much, and I rest my case.
Thank you, Alo, for that fine speech. Deputy Prime Minister, when you're ready, here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Wow, the synchronization of the yes was crazy. Okay, yeah, but you're audible.
The world that the opposition is living in is utopian, and it's not going to help. It's not going to help benefit the F1 driver itself. Firstly, three things that I'll be doing in my speech today. First, I'll be giving some rebuttals towards the opposition side. Second, I'll be giving you some more elaboration towards the case of my prime minister. And lastly, I'll be giving you some comparison and sum up the debate and assure why opening government wins today's debate. Firstly, rebuttals. The opening opposition stated that, oh, Drive to Survive is a documentary to portray like the hard work of the F1 drivers to actually cater to actually become the best out of the best. And they said that, oh, it's not only about the rivalries or like the problems that has been caused between the teams, right? But they say that Drive to Survive actually portrays the hard work, and but still, even if they say that Drive to Survive actually helps people to actually know about what the reality of being an F1 driver, but it's still bad in our world that Drive to Survive, because firstly, as my prime minister already stated, that Drive to Survive is just having false info, right? Why do we see that it's bad for Drive to Survive to actually portray the reality about the being an F1 driver is wrong, because first false info is not going to it's not reaching the end goal of the documentary. My prime minister already made it clear that the main purpose of having a documentary to actually educate people to actually knows about the routine, um and also all the hard work that is supposed to have if you want to be an F1 driver, right? So when the open opposition states that it's just going to create more attention for people to actually know about their lifestyle, it's just invalid, because as they say, it's still wrong because it's false info and it's not correct on how they are portraying F1 info is. Secondly, they said that Drive to Survive is going to encourage sponsorship for these people to actually sponsor these F1 drivers, right? Realize that, but if the co- if the show is not real to itself, or it's not real about how they are portraying about the F1 drivers, is that like as in the infos that I already stated about the false rivalries, right? The Drive to Survive already made a false rivalries between the teams. So like, if with a conflict, do you think that sponsorship companies will actually sponsor these drivers because they have like an image, right? Because these iPhone drivers have an image. So like, if they already portrayed as they have already a bad image in the show, no sponsor
no sponsorship companies will actually sponsor them, and that will just lead to more harm in the at the end of the day, because the image of the F1 driver will be tarnished because it involved with a trouble, right? Okay. Next, second things I'll be giving second thing I'll be doing, I'll be further on elaborating the points that my Prime Minister already stated. And okay, my Prime Minister already stated about defeating the truth of the purpose of documentary itself, right? Okay, where Formula One itself involves all teams, right? They have like many teams to compete with. So like when this Drive to Survive exists and they create, okay, like the main point that I want to highlight is the false rivalries, right? So when these false rivalries are created, there are conflicts with other teams, right? So when they have a conflict, it creates more bigger problem in the future. So when they have a problem, it's just defeating the purpose of we educated people with these shows to actually know that the reality and how hard it is to actually be an F1 driver's, right? And but Drive to Survive is not actually giving like the actual truth on how it is really hard to actually survive to be to be a driver itself, because Drive to Survive is going to manipulate the the real the real definition on how an F1 driver is supposed to be. Next, the false info, right? So when I'm going to explain more on about false info. So when Drive to Survive is portraying like the wrong definition, or like how the lifestyle of the F1 driver itself, they're going to people are going to look down on our career when they think that, oh, maybe F1 driver is going to be just the F1 driver is just going to have like tons of like conflicts with each other, because they say that, oh, they need to be the best out of the best. So like this is going to make and burn down our career, because that's not the real truth of that is not the real truth of how our life is when when we become an F1 drivers, right? Okay, next, the rate of fans will be decreasing, right? Okay, teenagers are easily influenced, right? So like many people in secondary school right now, they want to be an F1 driver. So if the life of an F1 driver is portrayed wrongly in this show, it's just going to create um more fans to be further on more isolated from to actually be encouraged more to be interested in F1, right? In Formula One. So when this fan knows that, oh, the portrayal of an F1 driver is wrong, it's just going fans get disappointed and then they lose interest. So why do we say that it's bad for us to actually lose the interest of like the real fans, right? Because we actually cater into like we prioritize the true and loyal fans rather than fans who are actually just come to actually see the show for like maybe 2 or 3 years. But we cater and prioritize the fans who are actually um in cater to like on the hard work of F1 drivers itself to become how they are right now. So we want to ensure that with the we want to keep on with the main goal to actually achieve at the end of the day. So what do have I stated in this speech today, right? The opposition, the government side, the world on the government the world on the opposition side, right? They said that, okay, opposition will have like a short term solution, because they said that, oh, at least when people knows about Formula One from Netflix, at least they know and like more exposed to Formula One, and they can be interested to be able to come to the race itself. But we think that that is only a short term solution, and it's not but it's not relevant to us because people just not going to be like the full interest of themselves to be there. Okay, and lastly, the word on our side is we actually cater to prioritize the truest fan and loyal fans, and we stay authentic with the loyal fans, because we think that it's the most sustainable long term solution, because we actually portray to the real life of the real lifestyle on how an F1 drivers really is. And with that, I never been prouder to propose.
Thank you to the DPM for that fine speech. To continue the opposition case, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Can I start?
Yes, you may.
All right, thank you so much. So a very special good evening to the chairperson and the members of the floor. So for today's debate, I would really love to point out what are the things that I'm going to say in this debate. which are, I'm going to rebut some of the points said by the government. Other than that, I'm going to state what are the stakeholders that have not mentioned by the Prime Minister for everyone's info. Next, I'm going to explain what are the arguments that our side have gave and some of the reasons why our opposition have more stronger benefit than harm. So first, let's look what are stakeholders that we are mentioning right now. We have Netflix, we have F1 drivers, we also have the viewers, and also the sponsorships. But the person that we are really focusing on right now is the F1 drivers, the Netflix, F1 drivers, sponsorships, and more. So I'm going to rebut some of the points that gave by the government. So first point, which is invades the privacy of the F1 drivers. So why does Netflix taking documentaries in F1 driving series? So that they can educate younger fans or younger children who really want to become an F1 driver. They are not really invading the privacy, but they are actually trying to give out the knowledge and some motivational messages to those younger
POI.
children. Sorry, I would love to continue my speech. So they actually wants to give out some inspirational messages and also some what are the real things that happening in F1. Yes, I agree that the documentary, some of them might not be real, but we also let's look at the positive sides where there are some parts that's actually real, like the F1 drivings, like the person around them, like the speech that they are gonna give, and more. Second, this appreciation to F1 and Netflix.
POI.
Allow me to continue my speech first. So what I'm trying to say is this appreciation to F1 and Netflix. I think this is not really a true statement because why? Netflix is the more populated a website or an app that we can watch anything, whatever we want. So this is an opportunity for those younger kids who really wants to watch how does F1 drivers experience in a circuit. Next, the DPM has stated that the F1 drivers and even Netflix will lose the sponsorship because of a bad image. This is where the director appears. Directors should direct the movie properly. They should direct the documentations properly. They should know
POI.
what's the full flow and more. Let me continue my speech. And next, I'll talking about the arguments that I'll be giving right now, which are the financial benefits. So let's take Netflix and F1 drivers. We can see both of them have the win-win position. Where Netflix, they will get sponsorships from different people, they will get views as a perspective of publics and more. For the F1 drivers, they will be getting more popular, and more sponsorships will starting to reach out to them because they are really interested to work together with F1 drivers. Next, argument that I'm going to give is increase the
POI.
I'll accept all the POIs at the end of speech. Increase the popularity of sport, which is known as the Formula One. So we really think that increasing the popularity of sport known as F1, because we knew soccer is the most popular sports right now, but we can also give chance to F1 drivers to show their potential, to how do they work behind the scenes, their hard work towards winning something and more. So in my perspective, as a voice of public, I really think that if we do a documentation about F1 drivers and more, it can give very inspirational knowledge and experience for younger generations, those who really desire to be an F1 driver. Me personally, I really love watching Formula One. And I think any series that comes out in Netflix documentary, it's really a good thing for me because it's something that I really like and I wish I could be one of them so that I can desire whatever I want by achieving something using the term hard work. So as per what the leader of opposition said, where we can reach out to something about sponsorships. Yes, this is where I really wish to get some points about sponsorships. Sponsorships is where we can increase the economical growth of Netflix, of the F1 drivers. and even to the country, because viewers have been watching more, there'll be more views, there'll be more interest, and I really think F1 drivers also would be really appreciate if the viewers love the documentation. And lastly, I would like to say is those who are discouraging that F1's the Drive to Survive documentations should not be included in Netflix is based on a people's perspective, not everyone's perspective. If you wish that you don't like to watch Drive to Survive, it's your wish. You can intend to not watch it. But there are some younger generations who really love to watch and would really love to get some knowledge and experience towards it. So with that, we really think that we can bring more benefits than harm, because our government stating only about the false driver risk, and also they're stating about the image of F1 drivers. But we bring more benefits like the economical growth, sponsorship they can get, experiencing from the small children and younger generation, and also giving out inspirational messages, such as the example of the movie that I watched lately, which is the Gran Turismo. I know it is not regarding to F1 drivers, but it is similar to about racing, and I really love that movie. So with that, I really think I can rest my case right now.
Thank you to DLO for completing the opening house. To begin the closing house debate, we'd like to call on the member of government. Here.
All right, thank you very much. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, before I move on to my rebuttals, my arguments, and what the stance is, I will begin by recharacterizing the motion. So, what is Drive to Survive? It is a popular Netflix documentary series. A documentary is supposed to be, it is a factual report designed to document reality, the truth. When we say reality, we mean the truth. So, is it really reality if the show includes drama, too much of it, to the point where the F1 drivers, us as F1 drivers, are supposed to follow a script, are supposed to go to the extent of fighting our own fellow F1 drivers just for a TV show? Remember this, so this TV show includes drama, too much of it. So this already distorts facts. It is no longer the truth. Not to mention, we as F1 drivers, to be in this show, we have already signed a contract to be on this show. So you see here, documents are supposed to educate. And if they cannot educate with facts and no drama, facts, okay? Document, we need facts and no drama. They have to not create tension between people who are simply watching the show or on the show, or the managements of the people behind the people in the show. Not yet. Thank you very much. Now, who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are us as F1 drivers, and our managements, the general public, aka the fans, maybe, and also what everyone failed to mention is the families, the close ones of us as F1 drivers, our families, our friends, anyone close to us. So, what is our stance? We as F1 drivers have been misled. We have been misled into signing a contract, and this show that we agreed to be on, it doesn't even portray the true nature of us F1 drivers. No, thank you. Anyway, I will move on to my rebuttals. So first of all, I will rebut on what opening opposition has said. So first of all, you agreed on the faults. You already agreed that, I'm so sorry. You already agreed on the false. You already agreed that some of the information are false. On a documentary, it has to be education. It has to be education. It cannot have any false information. It has to be the truth. Second of all, not invading privacy.
POI.
Have you seen the not yet? Have you seen the show? Okay, next. So opening opposition has agreed that the directors should do that. They should be truthful. But what are they doing? Why haven't they done that yet? What is taking them so long? They have not done that in their show. So now before I move on to my arguments, what is your POI?
Okay, so I would really want to ask, okay, if you think that younger children and generations should not watch documentary, like to become an F1 driver, they should not watch documentary, what are other suggestions that you are suggesting so that the younger generations could able to cooperate with the F1 driver, like what would be the scenario and more?
Okay, before that, I'm not going to provide suggestions because I'm not telling anyone to not watch documentaries. I'm telling them to stay away from documentaries that are literally not even documentaries. What are they? If they're not providing the truth, if they're not providing facts, then that's not a documentary. Go find actual documentary, something that can actually tell you the truth, something that gives you knowledge and educated information, real ones. Don't watch something like this. It's a drama. Now I will move on to arguments. So my first argument will be how Drive to Survive, a popular Netflix show, ruins the lives of the stakeholders, these stakeholders, including us, our family and friends, our management and the general public, the fans. So why is this true? First of all, it portrays the drivers wrong. Second of all, on why this is true, there are people who don't know that this is the drama. The fans, some of them don't know that this is the drama, that this is a drama produced by a so-called documentary series. Now, third reason on why this is true, F1 drivers are being forced to agree. They are being forced to be aggressive to each other. They are doing this for the show. They are being aggressive to each other for the show. Next, why is this bad? So first of all, hate can be spread. They can be spread by the fans. They can be spread by unsuspecting people who simply watched a show to learn about F1 in hopes that this documentary would educate them. No, it didn't. Next, too much drama is never good. Over exaggeration is not good to begin with. Next, the workplace and management is affected. No, thank you. Next, why is this important? First of all, think of the family, the close ones of the driver, so unsuspecting fans. The family, so us as F1 drivers, our family, no thank you, our friends, they are all affected negatively because of breach of privacy, not being truthful. People who don't even know that this is actually a drama, realizing, oh, this person is such a bad person, I'm going to throw hate speech to them on the internet now. So next, why is this still a part of the first reason on why this is important, the show Drive to Survive is not and does not care about our mental health, our images, our lives, nor our families or friends. Remember, they are a reality TV show now. At this point, they're not providing truth, they're providing drama, exaggerated romanticism. And not to mention, if they wanted a drama, why don't they just keep it far away from documentaries and move on to entertainment such as reality TV shows? No, it's already past. Now, you see, it is so sad to hear that we are caring more for profit, but not our families, our friends, close ones, the management, even the fans. Like, what are they getting? They're not getting anything. They're not getting education. They're not getting any good mental health. They're not getting anything. What are they getting from watching the show other than entertainment? If you wanted to watch a reality TV show, okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you to that speaker for that speech. To continue the debate, this house would like to call upon the member of closing opposition. Here.
Okay, I'll be receiving my POIs verbally. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
The synchronization is tremendous.
Yeah. See, the issue that I have against all three sides in this debate is the fact that they've been debating heavily on the feasibility of documentaries, whether it's supposed to be actual reality, whether they're supposed to be following a script. But understand that in this debate, we're supposed to be debating in the shoes of an F1 driver and whether Drive to Survive actually benefits them or not. Now, I'll be the member of opposition. I'll be doing a lot of things in my speech. I'll be giving a few rebuttals to side of government, and I'll be explaining and seeing the engagement between the opening benches and why opening side actually edges over them. And number two, I'll be clarifying what hasn't been done by opening and been actually illustrating and characterizing what this debate actually looks like. And lastly, I'll be giving you two main arguments under the key phrase why we think it's good and brings benefit to these F1 drivers, and why we think that the benefits of joining and participating in Drive to Survive actually overtakes the harms of this documentary having false rivalries. Now, before that, a few rebuttals that I have to side of government's very interesting case. Now, basically, they've come up and told you heavily that, documentaries are supposed to be about realities and the fact that these drivers will actually receive a lot of backlash. Now, two responses I have to this. Number one, I already told you in my opening line that it's not in the place of these F1 drivers to actually care about whether the documentaries actually achieve an end goal, whether they actually achieve and educating their viewers or not, because we see that in the place of F1 drivers, the only reason I would actually opt into participating in a documentary is for me to actually earn more money, because me as an athlete, it is in my place to actually work in my career to earn more money. Number two, not now. Number two, we think that if you want to bring up the argument about these drivers receiving backlash from the media, we say that you would actively be answering interviews, or you could be even speaking up in your social media, and we say that for a fact fans will believe you over Netflix. Now, moving on, the government has also came out and talked about how it is also an invasion of privacy and also even the backlash of it. But understand that you signing a contract to even participate into Drive to Survive is in your own full autonomy, the fact that you chose to do it yourself. Now, moving on, the government has talked, not now. The government has also talked about how it's very utopian and how they're not actually talking about the reality of F1 drivers. But understand, if we want to debate in their world where these F1 drivers will actually like to show the reality and educate these people about the F1 circuits or whatever, we say that the other mediums for these drivers to do so, such as YouTube or their own social media, which obviously they do have a large platform for them to do so. But we say that these F1 drivers even chose to participate in this documentary in the first place because they are collaborating with Netflix, which we say is for one the biggest entertainment industry, which we say that for one they will receive a lot of social media coverage. And then so now, the government has also bring up the fact that, these fans, they won't have real fans, these fans will lose interest and whatnot. But I say that for a fact, fans are fans, and they will still pay tickets for the F1 matches. Now, moving on, I'll be clarifying and illustrating a few more things. Now, when we look basically, I like to characterize and illustrate what fans actually look like. When we talk about fans, we're talking about really die-hard fans, people who come and see these world championships, people who support the drivers, people who want to be exposed to more of their favorite drivers, to say, what does my favorite driver actually look like? What's their personality?
Your idea, friend.
Treat other people, not now. And we see that these fans are fans who are really who want to constantly support their drivers, and they would like to see more of what their drivers' worlds look like. And number two, I like to characterize what F1 drivers actually look like. We say that as a driver, they need a lot of support. They need a lot of money to pay for their outfits, to pay for their cars. We see that a lot of money has to be put in to actually get this. Now, moving on to my two arguments in my speech. First of all, why we think that the Drive to Survive will actually bring more good and actually brings more benefit. We say that there are two reasons under this argument. Number one, we say that there will be a lot of media coverage. Now, the opening government has bring up this argument, but I like to give even more illustration to even strengthen this argument more. you. Now we say that when we talk about media coverage, there will be tons of different ways that the driver will actually be exposed to more and more fans. We say that there will be more journalists attracted to them. There will be more news reports about them. There will be more PR coverage. Then we say that there will be more sponsorships. There will be more brand endorsements, and they would actually be selected as an ambassador or whatsoever. And we said that, like just like I've said to you, the fact that they're actually collaborating with Netflix, meaning that they're not just getting promotion from the media, but they're also getting promotion from Netflix themselves, which I say will get a lot of promotion from all sorts of media platforms. And number two, we said that they will earn a lot of money from the documentary, which I've already stated to you, the fact that these drivers need constant support from their fans and in terms of money. A POI. Okay, moving on. Second argument about why I say that the benefits overtakes the harms of these Drive to Survive documentary. Now we concede to the fact that there are wrongful portrayals and false rivalries, but I have a few responses to this. The fact that number one, we say that with or without this documentary, with or without the participation, there will be false rivalries and false portrayals nevertheless, because we say that for a fact, most of these F1 fans are mostly diehard fans that will make false allegations towards you. So we say that it's not. So we say that with or without this documentary, there will be a fan. And second of all, we say that with this drama, we say that with this portrayal and these false rivalries, we said that this creates even more drama. And with that drama, that attracts these viewers, not now, this attracts these viewers to actually watch the show, for them to actually make it more interesting, because we see that a boring documentary of 21 episodes doesn't have an interest factor or a wow factor that actually leads your viewers to watch it. Because we say that if you actually want to educate these people about F1 drivers, you need to attract their attention first for them to actually constantly watch, like, what, 6 seasons of this documentary and for all seasons. And we say that even with this drama, there is a check and balance that exists in this documentary. We say that even though there is drama in this, we say that these F1 drivers will actually be able to call out Netflix for doing such a thing. And we say that because of this, they'll create even this will stir up even more drama, because we say that it is in effect a normal human nature to be attracted to drama. Now, what have I done in my speech? I've told you I've given you a clear characterization, a clear illustration what this debate is actually supposed to look like. And we're actually the only side that has been debating on the motion as an F1 driver. And I've told you two main arguments, and we actually answered the main questions that need to be answered in this debate. And that's why we say that closing opposition edges over all sides in this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for that fine speech. To finish and wrap up the government bench, government whip, here.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judge, Your Honor, we as F1 drivers have been misrepresented, we've been discriminated and downright disrespected as F1 drivers, and we feel ashamed to even represent ourselves. Why? Let me provide you with all the reasons why, and let me conclude closing government as a whole. But first, before that, let me provide you with a couple rebuttals. My first rebuttal is the opposition assumed that exposure to more people is a good thing. Okay, look, the problem here is that we're being represented wrongly. No true knowledge is gained if most things that are portrayed in the so-called documentary are false. Okay, my second rebuttal is that the assumption that we as F1 drivers agreed to all of this. First reason why it's untrue. We didn't agree to being misrepresented. We agreed to being inside a documentary that's supposed to document our real struggles and our real progress, and not to fake drama, not to over-exaggerate our relations with other people, not to expose our privacy, not to include our friends, our family, our relationships with other people. We did not agree to all of this. And one thing that all of you has forgot to mention, we as F1 drivers are needed to are forced to sign the contract for Drive to Survive, because it's included in our contract as being an F1 driver. That means if we do not sign the contract to Drive to Survive, we are not qualified to be an F1 driver. That is a breach of our privacy, that is a breach of our right, and we do not advocate for that. My third rebuttal, the assumption that closing opposition said that media coverage is a good thing because more people will know about the drivers and everything. But is it really a good thing if publicity that we gained is only bad publicity? And the only things, no. And the only things that we are asked are not questions that intrigue us, but questions that misrepresent us, and only not, and on our side, we don't have to answer their questions, but to beat their allegations. The media is going to attack us because we are being misrepresented. Because we as F1 drivers did not create drama with our teammates. We as F1 drivers did not try to be so heated and then so exaggerated when we lose a game or we win a game. We are there to compete, to represent a nation or a company, to drive.
UI?
No. For example, let me give an example of media coverage. Max Verstappen, okay, the #1 racer of F1 right now, did not attend an interview, okay, and talked to a reporter, and the reporter asked why. He said because the show has fake rivalries, and he didn't want to advocate for fake rivalries. So that's all the reasons why we do not want to be represented in this manner. That's the sole reason why we regret being inside Drive to Survive. Now, moving on to clashes. Firstly,
UI,
yes, what is it?
I would like to ask, how else do you want F1 to be more populated, to be more watched, other than media coverage, if you really don't want to expose yourself in media?
That's true. We have a multitude of other ways. F1 takes a lot of money. That's true. But F1 was popular way before Drive to Survive. Drive to Survive is just a way to profitize, not for us. Sure, we get a little bit of the profit, but most of the profits go to the director, to the company, to the sponsors, blah blah blah. But why would we trade our souls, our privacy, our friends and family for money for them? Not for us, but for them. That's not something that we believe in. And I believe you want to no. And I believe your privacy also should, and I believe you also want to protect your privacy. Okay, now moving on to my first clash. Which side actually respects privacy? The opening opposition boldly stated that they don't really care about their own privacy. They're okay with being misrepresented as a driver, and they're willing to sell their private information for profit and money. And oh, so bad, the money doesn't even go to them. Most of them go to the corporations and Netflix and all the people that they're not really part of F1. Okay? While closing government, my member of government has stated that we actually care about our privacy, in which we have the right to protect and defend our own privacy, because that is a basic human right, Judge. So let me give you a little bit of weighing. Which bench, opening or closing, voices our problems better? The opening government didn't even mention the impact towards our family members and our personal relationship with other people, and the managers that are affected too, because they also represent the teams, in which if their image are destroyed, it will demotivate us to even continue being a driver. Okay? So in comparison, in their world, where privacy is breached, where rights are not protected, where drivers where drivers are being where drivers do not regret the fact that they are being their rights are being ignored and their their souls are being sold for money. They don't really care because they don't really have that dignity in them to defend their honor and their privacy and their dignity. In our world, we F1 drivers actually care about the people we love, the people that downright support us. Sure, thousands of fans support us, but we believe that the ones that truly matters are our friends and family, and we are not willing to sell them out for our own benefit. So, in conclusion, Judge, if your moral values align with breach of privacy, misinterpretation, misinformation, and downright destruction of our dignity, then sure, side with the opposition. But if you believe that privacy should not be breached and information that's actually correct should be inside what's called a documentary, then closing government is the right choice for you to pick. I've never been prouder to present my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that speech. To complete the debate, opposition whip. Here.
I think it is extremely funny that side of closing government wants to portray these F1 drivers who are in Drive to Survive as like people who have been forced to sign a contract, who expect that this documentary is going to show 100% the truth and 100% of what they go through behind the scenes. But we tell you that if they didn't want to get into this show in the first place, then they wouldn't have signed the contract. We need to first realize that Drive to Survive is not just like a show that takes like 1 or 2 days to create and then it stops there. No, Drive to Survive is a very successful show, a very successful Netflix documentary that has gone on for not just like 1 or 2 seasons, right? It has gone on for like multiple seasons. So if these F1 drivers didn't want to willingly participate into this show, then they wouldn't have. If they had decided that the benefits that they get in this show do not outweigh the harms, then they would not have actually joined and pursued that contract, which is what we have been trying to tell you, which has not been engaged with whatsoever. Now, firstly, a few rebuttals to their side, right? They tell you that, it's going like by having Drive to Survive, it's like the wrong representation, and you are like actively shaming and discriminating against these people. But firstly, right, let's first realize that the only wrongly misrepresented part in the show is these rivalries. They don't actually, like, the info site didn't actually tell you that, these people are being like falsely misrepresented as like a person. They didn't tell you that this show that the producers misrepresented them as a person and their values. No, they tell you that the only thing they misrepresented is the fact that they have rivalries on their show. And I'm going to prove to you as to why that is actually more beneficial to them in later on in my speech. But right now, the thing that we have to actually know and like have to actually realize in order for us to actually have a fruitful debate is that, no, thank you, is that these people went into this willingly, right? If they tell you, right, if both side of opening and closing government has been telling you that, like, the whole reason that these F1 drivers want to create a documentary is because they want to like show the true behind the scenes and like of their life to their fans. But we tell you that firstly, if they wanted to do that, they could simply do that on their own. They could simply go on their social media and create a documentary themselves. They could simply go on YouTube and create an hour-long documentary that they can post, and all of their fans can view it because they already do have a large platform. But the reason why they choose to actually go and sign this contract with Netflix, which is one of the biggest entertainment industries, internationally, is because they want to have that extra profit gain. Is because they actually want to want money and like want publicity. That's why they even opt for that contract with Netflix in the first place. So now,
POI.
Yes.
Okay, I've stated before in my speech that we are forced to sign the NDA for Drive to Survive in order to be an F1 driver. It's not in our choice to actually be inside Drive to Survive. We are forced to sign this Drive to Survive contract in order to be an F1 driver. Secondly, we did not even agree to being like breach of privacy. We did not agree to all of that. It doesn't really weigh over the benefits.
Okay, that's not. Okay, firstly, you never actually tell us how breach of privacy happens. You never actually tell us where, even in the info slide or even on the show, where their personal information that they don't agree to share is shared. And secondly, on that NDA part, I don't actually know where you get that from. But if that were true, right, then that would already have been an issue that has been talked about in media right now. We tell you that right now, right? We tell you that right now the harms are mitigated in Drive to Survive because their lives, the lives of these drivers are not ruined because of like this fake rivalry, right? We tell you that firstly, these F1 drivers can actually call out Netflix, right? They can actually call out Netflix in like interviews or like media, even their social media, and they can criticize them. Like just in the info site themselves, they told you that these F1 drivers actively criticize Netflix, and because of that, we say that gives an impact because of like more publicity. Because what the public likes most is drama. We tell you that when the public sees that in this TV show there's like a rivalry going on between these two F1 drivers, that's going to interest the public. But also another thing that's going to interest the public is when these F1 drivers actually go out and actively criticize Netflix, which is the biggest entertainment industry, right? That is going to create a large scale drama that is going to get more views and more headlines. This is actively going to actively going to like result in like these F1 drivers actually getting sponsorships and then being like and having to get like and having to be like ambassadors of certain brands, which is why we tell you that it is so important for for Drive to Survive to exist, because even though there are harms, we tell you that those harms can be mitigated, and like they're not going to like be shamed, be like publicly and like so shamed to the point where they can't get out of it, right? Their families are not going to be so ashamed to the point where they can't even like go out of their houses, because at the end of the day, these F1 drivers are famous. They do have a platform that they can actively call out these medias for. Now we tell you that it is, and okay, now moving on, we tell you that it is so important because of, like, let's look at the principle in this debate, right? Like, side of like opening government has told you that even in their speech they tell you that, oh, like Drive to Survive is going to be treated like keeping up with the Kardashians. I would say that exactly that's why they are relevant. Why do you think the Kardashians are so famous and are so like relevant even to this day? Because they have so much drama. That's why they get sponsorship. That's why they are so rich in the first place. And we thought that actively benefits these F1 drivers. So it does actually bring tangible benefits to these F1 drivers, and it is good, right, when more people click and watch into their show. And side of closing government has brought up the same points, but then they tell you that they don't want like their personal info to be shared, and they don't want like the wrong representation. But we tell you that at the end of the day, even if what they're saying is true, right, the benefits that these F1 drivers get just by starring in such a popular and big TV show that is accessible internationally, that actively brings so many benefits that no other platform can give. Now, on the principle of this debate, we tell you that on our side, right, at least we actually tell you that we can get publicity and the harms can be mitigated and they can actually get the tangible benefits. Whereas on government side, they have been very narrow on saying that, oh, it's not bad because it's not 100% true. But then they actively disregard all of the benefits that we get on our side. So we tell you that with all these reasons, closing opposition is the only side that has actually debated from the perspective of an F1 driver and has actually told you all the tangible benefits and actually actually tell you why it's true.
Thank you to the speaker for that speech. I'm going to be going to the toilet first, so I'm going to take longer than about 5 minutes. Sometime around like 4:23, I'll be back and you guys can receive your OA. Okay, hello. Are all teams here?
Yes, we
We're
are.
here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I don't know if you guys are saying that at the exact same time or whether the mic is just off. Regardless, thanks for making it to the end of the third round here on IDC Day 1. I think this was a very high quality debate, so I don't want any of you to feel discouraged just because you might get a fourth or because you might get a third. I'm so sure that if you guys were to get those like rankings, that you'd probably be doing relatively well in the later rounds, regardless. I'm going to be structuring my OA into three. First, I'm just going to give some general feedback. Second, I'm going to give the call. And lastly, I'm just going to justify the call. Let's begin with some general pieces of feedback. I think first is just to acknowledge that this is going to be an active debate, and therefore teams are expected to link all of the benefits and or outcomes back to the actor. More importantly, what the actor's incentives are likely to be. So there needs to be some analysis and material regarding what the actor is likely to care about, whether that be monies, whether that means attention, whether that means profit. These are all uh, things which need to be analyzed in order to make the most of an actor debate. And in absence of this, I can't completely credit any of the outcomes which were in fact given because there just wasn't that link. That's just first on this being an actor debate and for future actor debates in any tournaments, really. This is something which you guys have to take into consideration. Second, I think is because we are in a higher level room, you guys do need to, instead of consider how to achieve your outcome, because most of you can already do that, but more importantly now, tell me the size of your outcome, whether that is good and or bad, what that is going to look like, more importantly, the importance of that particular outcome. Because it is not so much a problem anymore for you guys to achieve something, but the problem then becomes whether your benefit and or harm is more important, more beneficial and or more harmful than the other teams which are also presenting harms, benefits and or any forms of outcomes, really. These are analysis which for some of you had led for me to decide you getting either a second and or a third. These are all things which you guys should be considering. Those are just some general pieces of feedback which I think you guys can improve on. Now, let's look at the call. And this was a relatively close call for most of the houses. The call goes CO, CG, OO, OG. I'm going to write it in chat right now. Just give me a sec. But it's really in order, for in backwards order. Yes. So that's the call. Now, let's go house by house. What does OG generally tell us? OG generally tells us three things. Number one, that drive to survive is going to misrepresent individuals. And this is done through, say, the falsification of information. This looks like false rivalries and the dramatization of events which occur within F1 in general. Second is they tell me invasion of privacy. And third is they tell me the loss of fans. The reasons why I couldn't completely credit all three of these arguments really is because two things. Number one is I'm just unsure what is the extent of these outcomes that is harms. And secondly, why that is so important to the actor. This was unique analysis which was missing from OG specifically, where OO, CG, and CO more often times than not linked it back to the stakeholder that is just the actor. OG had, for me, failed to actually link this back to the actor in this debate. So let's look at misrepresentation first. You never actually tell me to what extent this false information is going to seep into the personal life of this F1 driver and what that is going to manifest in terms of harms. To that extent, by the end of OG's case, I'm just like, oh, sure, there's going to be misrepresentation, but I just don't know why that's so bad. Second outcome which you guys tried to push, invasion of privacy. Also the same thing. I was just unsure what this invasion of privacy is going to look like, more specifically, what that is going to do to this particular actor and to what extent that is going to harm this individual. Something which later closing houses were able to capitalize on and then take credit for. Lastly, is just the loss of fans. yeah, like the loss of fans seems relatively clear, but I'm uncertain why this loss of fans is going to so deeply harm this F1 driver and what that is going to do for this particular individual's personal selfish interests. Although this did have the most credit, as in an implied context, I can understand why a individual would feel to some extent personal loss for losing fans, although it was never explicitly linked to me for me. So that's why by the end of OG's case, due to those just loopholes in analysis, the best thing I could credit was just to some extent the loss of fans. But even then, in closing houses, it was later better analyzed. And that's how I left OG, or rather that's how OG left. How did OO leave here? OO began by saying, no, it is unlikely you're going to be misrepresented in this F1 in Drive to Survive. It is highly likely going to highlight things such as the hard work you put in and all of the training, likely to also emphasize like this motivational type of motivational type speeches within the particular representation. Second thing that they told me was just, it is not going to be an invasion of privacy, although this was largely assertive. Second or third thing, sorry, was that they posited this, there are going to be new forms of sponsorships, and sponsorships are going to look like a lot of monies. Fourth thing they told me is there's going to be new fans. Fifth thing they told me is there's going to be more support from pre-existing fans. Sixth, if there's monies again. And seventh is just inspiration. So how did I look at representation as a clash in the opening house? I think as representation continued to persist in the debate, I was just more willing to buy OO's characterization of what representation was likely to look like, only because there was just not enough analysis which existed in opening government. Opening government did relatively well to suggest to me that it is going to be sensationalized, there is going to be drama which occurs, because these are things which are going to some extent get views. Later on, opening opposition just says, oh, there is going to be good representation because they want to highlight those such things. Yeah. To that extent, I was able to some extent give it to OG on what representation looks like. The only reason why they couldn't completely win that clash was because OO later told me in weighing, justifying why the trade-off of representation doesn't beat out monies, which is something that they mentioned later in sponsorship. So as it pertains to this opening clash about good representation, yes, OG was correct to say that it is likelier that there's going to be more harmful versions of representations which exist. The reason why OO bought, or rather was able to win this over, was because they actually weighed to me, yes, harmful representation, which isn't that harmful. However, we also get monies with this particular harm. So I was willing to buy that money in that instance would likely be something which a F1 driver would care about more. How did they deal with this? Or what did they posit about when it comes to fans? OG suggested in an assertion really that you're going to be losing fans because your fans care about what's truthful. OO just generally tells you two assertions, which to some extent beats the single assertion. That is that you're going to be attracting far more individuals. They suggested that you're going to be reaching far more rural areas, if not rural areas, just more underdeveloped areas and or areas which wouldn't have otherwise been reached should you have not had Drive to Survive. That is places like Malaysia, where you're going to have programs with F1, you're likely to engage far more like communities and likely to reach new visibilities. So to that extent, with that single piece of analysis alone, I was willing to believe that there are going to be much more fans which exist from Drive to Survive compared to those who leave because they don't like Drive to Survive. But then opening opposition additionally tells me that this new created drama is likely to fuel fan bases so much to the extent to where they want to rally and support behind their pre-existing favorite drivers, therefore likely keeping their fan bases much more closer, if anything, in a much stronger and more appreciable way. That's why I was willing to buy that fans are likely to exist not only more in the opposition world, but to a stronger extent in the opposition world. So to that extent, by the end of the opening house, I was willing to buy, yes, OG was right to say that there is going to be some harmful representations. OO weighs that over by saying, in a POI answer, by the way, that there is going to be monies in return, and that these forms of misrepresentations are not going to be that bad. Considering OG didn't tell me what this misrepresentation is going to look like, what it's going to do to people, I was very willing to buy that. But additionally, that there are just going to be far more fans on the opposition world, the point in which you do have Drive to Survive. But additionally, that the pre-existing fans will only remain stronger because of this particular feuds, which do fuel this particular fire. In all of that, there's also additional monies, and for some reason, inspiration, which I didn't necessarily give much credit to OO, considering it is just not a selfish desire for some F1 driver to suddenly give inspiration to random fans. I'm just not sure why that was necessarily given out as an outcome. So to that extent, in the opening house, I was able to give it to OO. How does CG enter this debate? CG enters by reframing what government, or rather what the actor would likely care about most. That is to say, the privacy of the individual himself and or herself, families, and friends. They later told me after that, likely what this misinformation would look like. They additionally told me, third thing, that is, it is far more better if you opt for other educational things as opposed to, say, opting for a docu-series, which is really just a drama, right? Lastly, or the last two things is that monies doesn't return to these individuals. And fourth thing is just on coercion. I was very willing to, in closing government, buy that this was going to be the framing of interests which exists for this particular actor. That is to say that, yes, this individual does care about his privacy. He does care about the people who are closest to him, because more oftentimes than not, as human beings, your selfish desires are just those who are closest to you. And I was very willing to buy that, so much to the extent to where it already weighed over generally the framing that OG had given. How does this then, like, what is the weight of CG when you then add misinformation? They later tell you that this misinformation is likely to go to the extent to where you're going to be harming the personal lives of these particular families, and that it is going to some extent likely impede on their abilities to, say, go out of the house, because people are going to, say, give them backlash, whether that be online or like in real life. And it is unlikely that you're going to be, say, representing these individuals and their families in a very meaningful way. So much to the extent to where it is likely going to force this individual F1 driver out of the circuit, because he just can't, or no, she just can't take all of this, say, hate which exists. They later tell me that, as in a mitigation, that monies won't return. So they were essentially telling OO that, yes, you are going to be getting monies from the trade-off of this representation, but to some extent, this monies is not going to return to this individual. Lastly, they told me about coercion. I'm not going to go too deep into those last three ones until we finish talking about CO. What does CO do, which is very strategic? CO does two things generally. Number one is they engage with misrepresentation. The way they engage with misrepresentation first is to tell me that it is a wash. They suggest, look, you are an F1 driver, you are extremely popular, you're one of the biggest sport athletes in one of the biggest sports which exist in status quo. That means it is highly likely you're going to be misrepresented anyway. It doesn't matter if Drive to Survive exists or not, you're going to be misrepresented. And therefore, all of the harms which CG has suggested in terms of this misinformation and the impeding of privacy on families and friends would exist anyway. They later tell me that it is unlikely that this particular wash, or rather this particular breach of privacy, is going to extend to the extent to which CG was willing to say, which is, or you're likely to misrepresent these people until they basically can't live their lives. I was very willing to believe what CO was telling me, just mostly because it was just a more charitable version of what this backlash is likely to look like. I don't think CG does enough to tell me why fans so specifically care about cracking down on the personal lives of these individuals, so much to the extent to where they are willing to be psychotic and go to people's houses and actually impede on their privacy, so much to the extent to where they can't live their own physical lives. CO gives me a far more charitable, likely moderate version of what this is going to look like in status quo. I was willing to buy that because as an average intelligent voter, I know that most sports athletes don't actually deal with this physical with their privacy being physically impeded on at all times in status quo. Even more so, their friends, because their friends can more oftentimes than not just live their average lives. So what CO does first is says, look, this harm exists both ways. But secondly, this harm doesn't even really matter because it's not going to be that big. And it is just very extreme for CG to say that it is going to extend all the way to the point where people can't live their lives. But they later, in a third level of analysis, tell me that this mitigation can be this can be mitigated through mechanisms like calling out, and to say that F1 drivers have extremely big platforms which allows them to then go to, say, whatever social media, whether that be Twitter or Instagram, and say, hey, I'm not a fan of Drive to Survive because they misrepresent me, and that this is going to be a mechanism to which they can actually reverse all of the harms which did in fact accrue from this particular Drive to Survive. So by the end of this, right, CEO had strategically done 3 levels of analysis as to why this misrepresentation is fine. First, that it is going to exist on both sides. Second, that it's actually not going to be that bad and or not going to be that extreme. But thirdly, that through Drives to Survive and through this platform that they do have as very popular athletes, they can actually call out these particular lies as things which just aren't really that big of a deal, and or rather just aren't real, period. And therefore, they can actually continue to rewrite what they believe is good for themselves. That's why by the end of this speech, really, CO strategically takes misrepresentation and completely flips it. And I'm completely fine with believing that misrepresentation is just not that big of a deal. What does CO then do additionally, which to me has to be weighed against the last 3 things which CG said? CO essentially frames how expensive F1 is. And this was strategically analysis which was in fact missing from OO's case. OO just says, yeah, money matters, money is good, that's great. But I'm not so sure how much importance money actually means to people in general, whether that be the drivers, but more specifically to F1 as a circuit. What CO does is tells me, look, F1 is very expensive, which an average intelligent voter knows. Like, F1 is very expensive. The prices of those cars are literally the prices of rockets that they send to space. That's a lot of money. And that kind of stuff breaks down a lot. They told me essentially that these circuits specifically require a lot of money to be funneled in. And this money can only come from like platforms which are large. They then tell me that Netflix is one of the biggest streaming platforms with some of the largest forms of revenues, which can give them that particular money. That's why analysis as it pertains to money is, to me, was not that derivative of opening opposition. Because opening opposition said they get money from this platform. What closing opposition says is they get money from this platform, which is the biggest platform for a circuit and sport, which requires a lot of money. And that's why I was willing to believe that this money matters so much. My laptop just died. Okay, it didn't die. That's why I was very willing to buy these monies as something which was important, but additionally something which was uniquely analyzed by closing opposition as opposed to opening opposition. And that was necessarily analysis which was missing from opening opposition. If not, I would have definitely had given that to opening opposition and said that that was just like derivative. Now, the reason why I put CO over CG is because education, monies doesn't return, and coercion did not, to me, implicitly weigh over this particular monies. What CG needed to have done is tell me why A, this money is not returning to them means that most of the benefits which they can accrue will just not accrue. For instance, their F1 cars won't improve, their salaries won't improve, their managements won't improve. But additionally, that it will just go back to Netflix, and therefore they're going to be getting nothing in return. But secondly, that this principle of coercion is so much to the extent to where it is going to weigh over this material benefit. And that is more oftentimes than not relatively challenging, because principles are very hard to weigh on material, juxtaposed to a material outcome. But what you should have done is frame to me why, as an individual who is a human being with very good morals, an F1 driver is likely to deeply care about coercion and what coercion means to him, and why that would be something which weighs over any forms of monetary benefit. To that extent, for as long as I haven't gotten an explicit weighing, I'm willing to believe that the material world, that is this monies, for a league, which is extremely expensive, is going to be something which this F1 driver cares about much more. So to that extent, CG was able to tell to me, to some extent, that some forms of breach of privacy are going to exist. Not to the extent to where they were telling me, because CO was able to mitigate it. But additionally, that coercion as a principle continues to stand. And that is a principle which, to me, weighs completely over OO and OG, because it was just very well analyzed and very well analyzed compared to what OO and OG gave. With that being said, CEO was in fact able to tell me why this misrepresentation is just going to be fine. More importantly, why this money is just going to be something which they most definitely need right now. That's exactly why I see this call going to CO, CG, or OOG. If there's any questions, you guys can PM me and or ask me right now. Very good debate though. It was very close. Like honestly, it's very close. You guys can see in your scores later. Like if any one of you had just given me additional analysis here and there, I was very willing to flip each one of the teams to very different positions. Any questions? Am I muted? That'd be crazy. I just gave like, okay, everyone good?
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yes, thank you.
Can
Okay.
Can I
Yes,
just
sir.
can I
Could
just
we
get some?
ask?
Okay.
Could we
me
ask for
first.
personal feedback?
Sure. You want it here on text? Like,
Here
okay, sure. What team were you? And what position were you?
we were CO, and could you give for both of us? Member of op
CO,
and
both of
operator.
you.
Yes.
Okay, give me a second. Let me check it out. Okay. CO. Oh wait, let me cough. Okay, nice. CO first speaker. I think what you did with your own material as it pertained to your speech was already relatively good and well. I think what you could have added additionally was just frame to me the importance of these fans to this particular actor. Because to the end of CO, I just didn't really know how much this actor cares about fans and how much you're going to improve that, the point in which you do in fact have drive to survive. That's something which I think OO does relatively well. OO says like, oh, you're going to be getting fans, you're going to be getting fans which are likely to care about you much more, so on and so forth. I think you guys didn't really win on fans. You guys won very clearly on monies. You guys won very clearly on this misrepresentation. But if you wanted to have increased the margin, and what I mean by that is like make your win so much more clear, like maybe like 3-4 point margin, you could have additionally told me or tried to win on fans. And why you're going to be getting that, the point in which you do go to DPS. I think that's something you could have done in first speaker of closing opposition member, but I think you didn't really do it that well because you just said like, diehard fans come to watch, we want to understand more. That's it. Relatively outcomeless. That's something which you could have capitalized on. Because if not, all that material about fans was sort of just like, it wasn't really taken. It wasn't taken advantage of completely. That's for first speaker. Let's go for opposition whip. Opposition whip was good, very good speech, very clear. I think what you could have done though, as opposed to just like say, oh no, it's not coerced. Like these people find it on their own consciousness, like they actually did do it consciously. I think that was relatively unengaging. What you could have done is said like, you know what, panel? Sure, maybe they were coerced. Like obviously your first speaker, or rather you should start with saying like, no, they weren't coerced, yada yada yada. That's where you stop. Where you could have expanded on is saying, look, even if they were forced, I don't really care. Because when they come home with all of this additional money, when they come home with far better cars that they can drive, which they care about, by the way, because they're very, very like psychotic with the improvement of their cars. And with all of these new fans surrounding them, they're going to look at this coercion and say, you know what, I honestly don't care, really. And that's why you can weigh material over principle very easily. Because principle more oftentimes do not just exist as this abstract concept or rather a guideline for human beings to conduct their lives. The point in which these guidelines don't necessarily bring that much material impact, you can just trade it off. Trust me, if the judge hears, you know what, they were forced to do it, but guess what? They're going to realize that they care about all of the outcomes which come after that, much more better later. Let's do it, man. Because let's be real, if your mom, this is just an example, right? If your mom coerces you to eat vegetables, yeah, principally it was wrong. But the material outcome from that is that you're going to be a healthy individual. Who cares about principle, the point in which there's going to be much more material outcomes which are better for you as an individual? That's basically it. That's for both of you. OO and COW. Yeah. Good. Got it?
Yeah, I have a question. Do
Sure.
you have like any suggestions on like some structure for like whip in general for like BP?
For
And-
BP,
Yeah.
I don't like encouraging speakers to find a structure. What I suggest is to look for things. What to look for then? Look for the biggest things they're winning on, then look for the biggest things you're winning on. What you then need to do is point out to the judge what they're clearly winning on, engage in obviously their worst case, and then engage in their best case. Tell us why it's going to be the worst case, but then also say, okay, fine, let's also talk about the best case. And then either A, mitigate it in the worst case, lah. In the worst case, A, mitigate it, or B, flip it. What you guys generally did was try to flip, or you did both. You mitigated and flip. The only thing that you didn't mitigate and or flip was this coercion thing. You just said, tak, memang diorang takkan di-coerce, whatever, let's keep going. Yeah. Luckily, it was a principal outcome. So it weighed over, you guys weighed over in terms of material. Yes. I wouldn't suggest a structure. Just look for what they're winning on most. Deal with that first, and then look for what you're winning on, frame that back up.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Okay. Who's the other team?
Yeah, it's. Can I ask for personal feedback for closing
Sure.
government?
Okay, both speakers?
Yes, if you're fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's look at CG. Okay, I think for first speaker CG, you were very strategic in pointing out first that most of the debate did not operate in an actor context, but secondly, that let's see, what's your outcome here? Oh, that family probably means the most to these individuals. I think to that extent, all of the material which existed as it pertains to those two things were very, very productive and very, very good. I think in totality, that was probably like 4 minutes of your speech. 4 minutes of your speech in total was allocated to, oh, this is an actor debate. Oh, we care about friends and family. What were the 3 minutes of your speech which I felt was relatively unproductive? I think most of your speech as it pertains to this education, information, drama series. This is a docu-series, not a drama. I just don't really know why that matters to the driver one. But additionally, what outcome you're kind of trying to achieve from that. You were really just sort of like half calling them out for saying that they're not actually educating people. You needed to have definitely extended all of this misinformation to a material outcome, which was very clearly illustrated to me going to harm this F1 driver in general. If not, all I did hear was like, oh, but you're misrepresenting these people. This docu-series turned into a drama. It's like, okay, but then what? And what you could have done is then said, oh, this means that teams are going to have internal tension. That means the ability for a Ferrari driver to actually have good chemistry with his own teammate is poorer, and therefore their ability to actually perform on the day itself is poorer because there is so much tension which exists. These are examples and illustrations which I just didn't end up seeing exist within your speech in general, and therefore I wasn't necessarily able to buy an outcome which occurs from this misinformation. The closest thing I kind of came to an outcome was like, oh, their families are going to be stalked, which is a very extreme version of your outcome. You need to come somewhere back to the middle and then only go to the extreme later on. That was generally it for government member. Very productive, but the 3 minutes on misinformation, give me a material outcome, illustrate what that looks like for the actor and why that is going to happen in a reasonable context, and then it's going to happen in an extreme context. Because then later when they trade off the extreme context, or when TO calls you out for an extreme context, at least you still have a reasonable context to which a harm is going to manifest. Faham tak? Kalau tak faham, cakap je, then I can like re-explain it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, coolio.
Right.
Let's go to
Can
Gapwit.
the opening opposition also have personal feedback?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Okay. Thank
Let's go
you.
to Gapwit. Okay. Okay, Gupwit, what you do really well is kind of reframe all of the outcomes from your case in general, which is to say that there is to some extent a principle of choice which has been denied here and they have been coerced, but additionally that you do in fact care about this privacy and what this privacy means for your people around you. I think what you needed to have done for me to completely buy your case as opposed to say CEO is identify exactly what CO was winning on and just tell me why that doesn't matter. The closest you came to giving me that was that it is unlikely this money is going to return specifically to the driver. The only reasons why I couldn't completely credit that really was just because you didn't extend on it. If you just extended on it, like say, Judge, let's be real, Drive to Survive probably only increased the revenue of F1 by like 2%. But in the pursuit of this 2%, which A, doesn't return to the driver, B, returns to the managements like Ferrari, all of these corporations, but probably doesn't even shift the needle that much. Maybe they can buy a new tire because these tires are expensive. Maybe they can buy a new like rim because these rims are expensive, but it is nothing which actually completely changes or revolutionizes this league, all at the expense of this privacy. Then I'm willing to believe, oh yeah, that's not that big of an outcome or benefit which exists here. The point in which you do actually have Drive to Survive. That was really just the missing analysis which existed on your side. You just needed to expand on why their benefit doesn't matter. If not, you had just extended on why your benefit matters. And to me, I was not willing to weigh that over, say, the closing opposition's material outcome. Second thing which you could have also have done is frame to me why this actor really cares about his and or her moral principles and why the point in which he allows and or she allows this coercion to slide, that's going to some extent weigh on this individual as a whole. That's really just it. You didn't, to me, identify their greatest path to victory and mitigated it. By the end of the debate, CO was still able to run away with a lot of money that to some extent still helps this individual become a better driver at the end of the day. And it can only be done through the Drive to Survive. That's it. Understood?
Understood. Thank you very much.
No biggie. Okay, let's go to OO. But all of this was very close, by the way, guys. So like, no biggie. Let's see. Okay, OO for both of you really, but I'm going to begin with first speaker OO. Really broadly, just two things. Number one is tying this back like it is truly an act of debate, as opposed to just like implying that these F1 drivers are going to get benefits to some extent. That looks like obviously telling me what this driver cares about. But second thing, broadly for OO, is just illustrating to me the extent of your outcomes. And that was really just the broad general feedback which I've given both teams. So what do we see here from OO first speaker? We saw generally that, you're going to receive a better perspective of the F1 experience. I just don't know what's the outcome of this, aside from fans being able to access greater perspectives of F1. I'm unsure why a random fan, which exists in Guatemala, having a new perspective changes Max Verstappen's life. But if you analyze this a bit more, did you mute me? That's crazy. Sorry, someone muted me. They don't want you guys to get OE. His name is Hanafi. If you get him as a judge, just remember. Okay, so I'm just unsure why some random dude in Guatemala having new perspectives about me, Max Verstappen, changes my life. But if you had just analyzed it a bit more by saying, it is these very diehard fans you create out of new perspectives, which will come to your shows, which will cheer for your names, which will back you up on Twitter. These are crazy fanatics you can only make when they access these new perspectives about you as an individual driver. And that can only happen through these types of shows, because these are the only ways they can access these personal interviews, these personal views, and these personal messages. Until you've given me the link as to why it'll come back to the actor, can't completely credit that. Additionally, illustrate to me why that is going to be something which occurs from the individual himself, fan, all the way until it reaches Max Verstappen. Yes, yeah. Let me see what else. Yeah, and same thing with sponsorships. Like something which CO does really well is tell me that F1 is expensive, then they need a lot of money. You guys just say like, oh, we get more sponsorships. It's a lot more than just sponsorships, man. The sponsorships we're talking about are like billions of dollars. It's more money we might ever see in our whole lifetime, dude. You have to tell me, look, Judge, we're not talking about $1, $2, $3 million. We're talking about multi, if not $1 million, billions of dollars, which are going to be accessed to the point in which you turn this into a docu-series. This money expands when you have new circuits, when you have new teams, when you have new cars, and when you have new drivers who can access far more audiences, which you would have ever accessed if you had never made this show in the first place. Our case is simple. Drive to Survive, $20 billion, which have never existed. Their case is simple. No Drive to Survive, you get privacy and you have no money. That's it. What I'm trying to tell you is just expand the benefit and illustrate to me what that looks like, because only then I will really care about how much that matters. If not, it's just like, oh, sponsorships, like, okay, sponsorships, whatever, man. I'll go get a sponsorship from Milo, Understood?
Yes, clearly. Thank you very much.
Okay, nice. No problem. Sorry if I sound like mad. I'm not. Just,
No, I mean,
yeah, okay.
it sounds very valid and logical. Thank you.
Just expand the benefit, really. Okay. 002, you clarify the stakeholders. Yeah, same thing. You guys both give me very general versions of your outcome. That is to say, yes, that there's going to be more sponsorships and the F1 can now focus more because of this particular monies. I'm just unsure what's the extent of this money, what the extension of money can do for your league, what that is going to do to F1. Additionally, why that is going to return to the F1 driver and what that means for the individual on a personal level. If you had given me that in 002, probably, yeah, definitely would have weighed over CG. CO, maybe would have weighed over CO. Really depends. The debate would have changed by then. So yeah, very similar feedback for both of you.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Okay, you guys take care. Have a good rest. Good luck for next rounds tomorrow. Does anyone else want anything? Any questions? I can just answer. No? I don't think so. Okay, great. You guys go have a great one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank